There are a lot of crazy conspiracy theories out there on the internet, and you don't really have to look far to find them. Unfortunately for the United States, national security concerns around TikTok are all too real. In the past year alone, the Chinese company behind TikTok has been placed under investigation by the State Department. The military has banned its use, calling the app a cyber threat. The FTC issued a record $5.7 million fine for illegally collecting and transmitting the personal data of children to their overseas data hubs. Cybersecurity experts are alarmed at the lengths TikTok has gone to disguise what data it collects, how that data is used, and where that data ends up. Our policymakers have to take seriously this new and super effective backdoor into Americans' most sensitive data before it's too late.
The concept of freedom, which is necessary for all individuals to enjoy the spoils of their life, is chiefly defined by risk-taking. Risk-takers have forever held the torch of progress in American history. From the colonists to the civil rights movement, people have taken initiative to shape their futures. Unfortunately, the latest murmurings around banning TikTok in the United States forgets this simple principle. Let's be clear. Yes, TikTok has ties to China, insofar as its parent company ByteDance is based there. Yes, TikTok could theoretically be forced to fork over significant metadata by the Chinese Politburo, as could American companies that operate in China. None of this is a compelling reason to ban the application. Because Americans in their private lives have a constitutional right to do this, let the market decide how these things will work out.
Hello and welcome back to another Millennial Minute. I'm David Grasso. You've already heard from our guest, Christian Watson, host of the Pensive Politics podcast, and Max Burns, a Democratic strategist, and of course a friend of Bold. Thank you both for being here. So today's burning question, should the government ban TikTok? Christian, why do you say that, maybe we should just let individual consumers make their own choices?
Well, primarily because TikTok itself is consumed mostly by teenagers and people who are under 21. And to be honest, I find it quite odd, this conception that the Chinese Politburo will be trying to get information from teenagers when they have assets in the country already. They have assets everywhere. I mean, every intelligence agency has assets everywhere that has worth its salt. So I don't quite understand this idea that it's a national security risk to teenagers who are dancing to the latest Billboard Top 200 hits. It makes no sense to me. So I think that private consumers should be able to do what they will with their own devices.
Max, why do you disagree? Why do you think that TikTok could potentially be a security risk?
Well, China isn't just interested, unfortunately, in stealing the personal information of children. We've seen the Pentagon has banned it because it can use geolocation data to reveal sensitive military installations. It copies clipboards and sends them out to foreign servers. And the problem is we know very little about what ByteDance is actually doing with that data after it leaves the United States. They're not required to report that. And so far, we've seen several concerning pieces of code in their program that imply that they could move, if requested, data back to China very easily.
So, Christian, you're not necessarily disagreeing with Max that it could be a security risk, but you're just saying that's none of the government's business.
Well, precisely. And also, I think Max is right. We don't really know. He said it's a very astute point he made. We don't really know to the extent that this is being done because there's no evidence that ByteDance has done anything mischievous with the information. That's number one. Number two, yes, the Pentagon did indeed ban this, but they banned it from government devices. So government devices, and I agree, contain sensitive information. And this is routine. The Pentagon, the DOD, Homeland Security, they typically ban stuff from their devices that could pose a security risk. So TikTok is not the first person to be on this list, and it won't be the last person to be last act to be on this list.
Yeah. So Max, I guess the question is, should the government move to ban this then? Because you're both agreeing that we don't know about the security dimensions of this application, but should the government take decisive action and say no more?
Right now, Josh Hawley has pushed in the Senate to have TikTok completely banned in the United States. I think that's premature. What we've seen is committees like the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States has launched investigations into exactly what the data policies for ByteDance are. And we're probably going to see much more aggressive investigation because these are not theoretical risks. The FTC fined ByteDance $5.7 million, one of their largest judgments to date, for taking and misusing the data of American children by moving it overseas without consent. And that's not a theory. That happened. And they admitted guilt to that.
So Christian, would you let your kids, let's say you have them or you don't, whatever, your kids, your niece, your nephew, your cousins who are underage, would you let them use TikTok?
Yes. Because private look, TikTok has a massive user base. Number one. Number two, China is probably not. And again, this is all speculation. There is no evidence that ByteDance is being mischievous with the information. Moving it overseas is a little bit suspect, but ByteDance is based overseas. So again, it's just there's no actual evidence that ByteDance is doing what people are accusing them of doing. It's just speculation. It's really geopolitical speculation because the Trump administration has been waging war against Chinese companies like Huawei and so on and so forth ever since Trump started this trade war. So I'm not entirely sure that ByteDance is the problem here. The real problem here is geopolitical calculation, and TikTok is an easy victim to prey on because it's a bunch of teens just enjoying themselves. So of course I let them do it. There's no actual risk to teenagers who are doing this. No actual risk. Not at least not one that's actually been based in evidence. To the government, perhaps, which is why a lot of government institutions have banned TikTok on government devices. And that is a different calculation than saying TikTok must be banned for the entire country.
So we have to include in this conversation, Max, that India has banned TikTok. And is it because of geopolitical calculations, like your counterpart is saying? Or is this really a problem for national security for both India and the United States?
Well, there's no doubt that there is a geopolitical element here, and that in some ways undermines the actual data security and privacy case to be made about this. For India, equally has a much more exposed front with China on military security. There's a lot of mutual paranoia there. Yeah. But I think it's not the wrong step for militaries and governments to rule this back. The question is, how far do we go in regulating and ensuring there's data security there for consumers?
Would you let your children on TikTok?
No. And I've worked for Facebook for several years. I don't use Facebook for similar reasons. I think until we have a much stronger data security framework in this country, you're really taking an exceptional risk in putting all that information out there.
So, Christian, what do you have to say to politicians out there like Senator Hawley who are saying, hey, it's time to crack down on this? You don't think it's an appropriate role for government to really wade into this?
They're being sanctimonious. And Senator Hawley, I mean, with all due respect to him, the guy has been moralizing on a lot of things. He doesn't like the video game industry, thinks video games are a pernicious problem for the youth. I mean, so you can't just take a senator and say, oh, look, they're doing this, therefore we should do this. All senators have political calculations, especially senators who have certain political opinions. So you have to actually look at this objectively. And objectively, there is absolutely zero evidence that ByteDance is being malicious with this data. It's a lot of data, yes, but guess what? The NSA's prison program collects just as much data, but folks don't bat an eye over that. I mean, Facebook a few years ago got dinged for the Cambridge Analytica scandal, where they literally gave up so much data to this foreign political consulting firm for academic purposes. Some very nebulous phrase like that. So I mean, this is not particularly a TikTok issue. This is an issue that we have to examine in the context of tech privacy as a whole. And TikTok is just being picked on because, unfortunately, the current geopolitical adversary for the country is China, and it's an easy target.
So, Max, I'll give you the last word. Do you agree we have some territory to cover with all sorts of social media and privacy? We have a problem?
Yeah, we do have a sanctimony problem with Josh Hawley. I agree with Christian completely. But there is a core issue there that matters. I mean, it is not theoretical. We've seen with the Equifax hack that made its way back to China. We've seen with the FTC already with ByteDance that they've pleaded guilty to misusing children's data.
And Wells Fargo banned them too.
And Wells Fargo.
And Amazon's put out conflicting messages over whether TikTok is allowed on their employee phones. Yeah.
Christian makes a great point. I mean, we need to be more concerned.
Devices, though. Employee devices, not personal.
Yeah, but how do we separate that, right? Because kids are with their parents, et cetera, et cetera. You're saying, Christian, that it's a danger for private companies and for the government. But if kids are on the same devices at their parents' houses, I imagine they're not orphans, and their parents are government employees. How do we ensure security?
Well, just exercise parental responsibility. I mean, would you let your kid play with a bunch of documents that you have for your work that are very important and sensitive? Would you let your kid play with a device that contains very sensitive information? I would hope not. Ban it from government devices, ban it from devices that have sensitive information on them that are used for private companies, but let teens just have their fun, because I promise you, China has more ways than you think of acquiring information about people that does not involve the Billboard Top 200. I promise you.
Well, guys, thank you for making me laugh today and for being here for this important conversation. Christian and Max, thank you so much. Thank you for being here for today's panel, and thank you for watching as usual. Have a great day.